I see you there on the Cowboys experience page.
All right. All right. So that's a good deal there. I think you should be live now. A little
Yep.
delayed, but hey, it's all's good over here. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about these final roster. And one thing that I can say for sure is that all we got to do is still take this thing one day at a time, one movement at a time. But who do you have really as your star players that you really want to make this team?
In terms of the guys that I really want to see make the team, I mean,
Correct.
I want to see what we have with Donovan Wilson for sure. I know he
Mm-hmm.
tweaked his ankle, but it sounds like we were able to avoid disaster there. So that's a huge relief. I don't know. I mean, he's probably going to be one of those guys that you see more with the special teams. I don't think in this year he's going to look to supplant, obviously, Jeff Heath, but I'm very excited to see what he can get. He had 3 straight games in the preseason with an interception. The secondary as a whole looks pretty stacked. I think they had 7 or 8 interceptions in the preseason compared to last year. Regular season had 9 as a team. So
Wow.
I'm very, very happy to be seeing that growth and development within the secondary under Chris Richard. Let's see a specific guy there though. Can I give you one that he's going to be on the roster, obviously, but a guy that
Right.
I've been just a little disappointed in so far that we haven't seen more?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Give it to me.
Tristan Hill.
Oh
I thought
wow.
I thought at this point we would see him kind of pressing heavily within that rotation, and it just feels like he hasn't quite put it together yet. Obviously, he's a rookie, so he's got plenty of time, but he's kind of been the quiet man, it seems like, along that defensive line.
Yeah, I saw that, especially this last game. I thought for sure this would be a game that he will show up and shine and blossom because, especially, he's going against people that's going to be working for Walmart, delivering UPS stuff and things like that. But he didn't show us anything. We saw more out of Daniel Wise and
Yep.
Joe Jackson and those guys. So all I can say is that when I look at him initially, he still have the burst. He just don't have the power. So
Right.
hopefully, and I mean just that maybe week 6, week 7, that he can turn a corner around and get some leverage and make something happen out there.
Yeah, man, that would be great. I mean, obviously, you get him in the second round. He's got a lot of ability, but you gotta give some time for it to come together. Not everyone hits the ground running to start as a rookie. Obviously,
True.
Pollard, he's going to get a little bit of trial by fire. It looks like in the wake of the Zeke holdout and everything. But you know what? So far, he looks like he can do the job just fine. I know he's not a pure every down back, but he's got a lot of ability that I think within supposedly a more dynamic offense under Kellen Moore, we'll be able to see him flex his muscles quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we look at everything, and you start talking about Pollard, right, on the offensive side
Yep.
of the ball, number 3, 6. Everybody thinking that, hey, he's going to be a serviceable guy for us. Now we're not looking for somebody to, I guess, flat out replace Ezekiel Elliott, but what we're looking for is somebody to just show up and be able to move the sticks when it's necessary. Because there's only one Ezekiel Elliott. Let's just
True.
put that out there before anybody say, "Hey, we don't need Ezekiel Elliott." But week 1, we will see. We
Yeah.
shall see.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier Saquon supposedly being the best running back in the league.
Be a
I know
serviceable
he's
guy
the
for
best
us.
one that's
Now we're
actually
not looking
reported
for
thus far,
somebody
and
to,
obviously Zeke's
I
got
guess,
his
flat
stuff
out
that he's got to
replace
get
Ezekiel.
sorted out. But hopefully Pollard, and he looks to be like he's up for the job. But hopefully he can kind of at least keep that playing field a little bit more level in week 1. And I think that they're going to hang on, it looks like, to Alfred Morris as well. I think his veteran leadership as a runner is going to come in handy as well. And then, of course, you got Olawale, who I think we might see a little more from this year as opposed to last year as well.
Yeah. So the thing is with old Wale, I think that this is my only thing with Scott Linehan. He was
Mm-hmm.
the type of coach that said, "Hey, I know what's needed to be done." He wasn't the type of coach where you can go to him and say, "Hey, can you work this out? I think that we'll run a play better this way." Nah, coach was like, "No, you run the play that I said." So
Yeah.
hopefully with Kellen Moore, he can identify with the players. He can understand like this is what's going on, and then he can say to himself, "I'm gonna give the rock to the fullback in these type of situations." That's all we can lean on right now.
Yeah, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much. I mean, I think with Kellen Moore, you're going to see some fresh looks, and I think you're going to see a little bit more of a give and take between the play call and what the players are seeing. That was something that we heard with Linehan last year was he didn't always take the feedback and adjustments as well. And I think that led us to being very cookie cutter at times, where he wanted to simplify things, even if it wasn't what the best show was out there on the field, even if there was a counter. Whether you look at the Amari Cooper situation where he points out what it ultimately becomes a go route against the Eagles, the deep ball there from Dak. It took a little bit of prodding, but once they decided to roll with it, instant 75-yard touchdown. So sometimes you just got to be willing to adapt to what the defense does and not just what you rolled out there initially. And I think we'll get a little bit of that with Kellen Moore, a little bit more give and take.
Yes, indeed. Got a question from the chat box. Swaggy D says, is it dumb to extend Jalen Smith and not Ezekiel Elliott? Can you give me the rundown on that particular contract?
Yeah, that is not at all dumb because it's a very team-friendly contract. Jalen Smith's cap hit this year, I think, is approximately $2.4 million. He's not costing hardly anything this year, and his average will be $12.8 million a season. Now, he is a great young linebacker. Obviously, he has one great year of work under his belt because the previous year, he was still a little bit wishy-washy. You saw flashes, but you also saw how defenses were still attacking him as he was still recovering and developing his strength and kind of that feeling in that drop foot a little bit. And now you don't see that at all. Now you see him Pro Bowl linebacker, and he's a guy that now you have him signed until he's age 30, his age 30 season. So you have a lot of value there with that. You pair him for the next several years with Van Der Esch, which now that's locked down. From Jalen's side, that is a quality signing. Plus, as I mentioned, his cap hit this year only being $2.4 million. There's a ton of money still out there for Zeke and them. It doesn't affect their deals at all. It's just a matter of, hey, you got players X, Y, Z, and another guy out there that you got to sign. Well, if you can sign one of them and it doesn't stop you from signing the other guys, you do it. It's not like you have an exact order of operations. When you get a deal like Jalen's that works out, it can go anywhere. So why wouldn't you just knock it out of the way now and get a little bit of positive energy behind you instead of going into the season where it's like, man, we were trying to knock out 3 contracts this preseason and we got none of them.
Yeah, so you're hitting it right on the head. In a perfect world, the Jalen Smith contract would have been Ezekiel Elliott's contract. Because if you look at the numbers and everything, you can say, well, and then on top of that, I'm with the belief if Ezekiel Elliott would have just hushed and said, okay, I'm going to play this year, I'm ball out and prove to the world that I'm worth every penny. And then he could have set out his last year, and then he could have fought the fact that if they were going to try to franchise him from there. Because I don't see no slowdown in Ezekiel Elliott. Every move this offseason was designed to help Ezekiel Elliott, especially when you look at Tony Pollard, especially when you look at the change of the offensive coordinator. So, and then on top of that, if you add this into it to mix it around, you have a better growth factor now with Dak Prescott because he's going into his 4th year opposed to him being his 3rd year or 2nd year or what have you. So it's a crazy situation. I understand that players look like this. They'll say to themselves, I need to be paid my value. I need to be paid what I'm worth. But this is a team. They got to understand that portion of it as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And, with the holdout and all that regarding Zeke, it's a little bit of a power struggle right now. Obviously, the Cowboys had their number in mind that they were willing to offer. Wasn't quite the Todd Gurley contract, it sounds like. The latest we're hearing is that it's not quite there. It's very similar, but not quite the same. And it sounds like, based on what was said by Steven and Jerry in the last couple of days, particularly I think today, because there was between the two of them 3 radio appearances today for 105.3 The Fan. Their focus pretty much is like saying that Zeke was wanting significantly more than the Gurley contract. And if you recall, Zeke did retweet the Joe Thomas tweet talking about how back in my day, he's been retired like a year, first of all. But he was basically saying back in my day when a player was top 3 or 4 at his position and he came due for a new contract, not only did he become the new highest paid at his position, but it usually came with a 20 to 25% bump over the previous high. My problem with that is a couple things.
Hit the holes in that conversational piece. I love to hear this.
Zeke is not up for a contract right now. He's got 2 more years left on his existing deal. I'm not going to say the franchise thing. I know that's an option, but that would be like a gap, a bridge between his 2 deals at that point. True. So that part already doesn't make sense. He's not due for a contract. He's forcing his way to get a new contract. And I totally understand why, because his value, every carry he takes, especially at the kind of where the Cowboys offense puts on him, through the first 3 years, and the way that they're built, they will keep putting that kind of tread on him. You have to realize that his value will go down every year that he waits. So you had the Todd Gurley deal, which set the market. The Rams gave him his deal 2 years early, set that precedent. The market could reset if Zeke doesn't get his deal soon, and Zeke sees his value slipping every year that he waits for that deal as well. So I get all of that, but the problem is Todd Gurley made $57.5 million. That's not the guaranteed. That's just the total contract. He got $45 million guaranteed, I want to say. And if the Cowboys were to give, as Joe Thomas said, 20 to 25%, let me just say the 20%. Let me shoot the low side of that. 20% on top of Todd Gurley's contract is another $11.5 million. That is a $69 million contract, which translates to roughly $17.25 million a year. That is insane. Todd Gurley makes $14 million a year, and that's the highest. So if you want to overshoot by that much, this is what I wrote about Monday in my article for Clutch Points, the specifics of that and why the Cowboys are in a tough spot because they need Zeke in terms of overall Super Bowl contention. But at the same time, the contract is crazy for a running back given the current market. There might be 3 or 4 teams around the league who would be even open to that idea, one of which they proved themselves last year was kind of the Rams. And now they got to figure that out. So I can't see a world where we're paying $17 million to the running back, but we just have to see. It's really interesting.
It's eventually going to happen, but the problem is with contract talk in the NFL with the salary cap, it's not a one shoe fits all or one size fit all type of situation, because every team got different needs. Every team got different parameters that they have to secure. And if we remove the salary cap, it's not a doubt in my mind that Jerry Jones would reach deep down in his pocket and pay Ezekiel Elliott. But let's look at it from the whole total picture. It's not like Ezekiel Elliott is a choir boy. And it's not like Ezekiel Elliott did everything wrong as well, because we do know that Roger Goodell got his toe in the water on a lot of these situations. But I will say this, Cowboy Nation, we will be a good running back team with just Tony Pollard. We'll be a great running back team with Ezekiel Elliott. But the problem is that when you start sitting out 2 weeks before your time is due, I would challenge anybody that's in the chat box, man, right now, or anybody that's on the Facebook panel right now, if you believe that you're worth more at your job, then don't show up. Just don't show up. And let me know how that works out for you. You know what I mean? And let me know. Just come back and report to me and say, hey, I didn't show up for 2 weeks. They gave me a higher offer. But if you at least show up. Look, this is my best analogy that I can give anybody, especially for the ladies. They would really know this. Would you rather have a proposal via phone? You know what I mean? Can you propose to your lady and say, hey, I just want to call you and tell you that I would like to have your hand in marriage? It don't work that way. It just don't work that way. It's better for you to be face to face. And I believe that Jerry Jones, if Ezekiel Elliott would have showed up to Oxnard, he would have been able to get the process of going a whole lot quicker. And we won't be talking about this heading into week 1. We'll be talking about, man, Ezekiel Elliott got that paper. We all focus in. We finna sign Amari Cooper. We finna sign Dak Prescott. And we finna go ahead and host that Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. I see a question here from David on the Cowboys Experience Facebook page. He's asking, do you think Kitna can get Dak playing lights out and get him on the same page with Michael Gallup? What do you think on that? I'll let you answer first.
Kitna can't do it for him. Nobody can do it for him. Only Dak can do it for himself. My thing is, what Kitna can do is show him things that he needs to improve on throughout the game and throughout the season. It's up to Dak. This is a prove-it year for Dak Prescott. I believe that Jerry Jones, if he needs to squeeze anybody, he probably can squeeze Rain Dakota Prescott by saying, okay, we're going to put you on this franchise tag for the rest of this year. Or we want to put you on the, hey, prove it to me deal, because we still got to pay your boy Ezekiel Elliott, and we got to pay your boy Amari Cooper. And if anybody want to put anybody's foot to the fire or feet to the fire, you know what I mean, it could have been Amari Cooper, because we was 3-5, and that's with the mighty Ezekiel Elliott. That's with Dak Prescott. Look, Amari Cooper could have said, you know what, you guys was 3-5. There was not going to be a playoff game, Jerry Jones. I put money in your hand because ultimately I got you a chance to get to the playoff. And then on top of that, Jason Garrett, I should have your number as well, because if you look at it, you was going to be out the door. Think about it. If we were just wanted to win those 3 games, or let's say if we would have won only 4 or 5 games, do you think that Jason Garrett would have still been the head coach?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. He definitely would not have been. And, to give further context to that, the Cowboys, when they were 3-5 with Dak and Zeke last year, I think they were 30th in the league in scoring offense at the time. Like, they were abysmal. And I think they were last in third down conversions. But then as soon as Amari Cooper came in, the rest of the season, the second half of the season, the final 8 games, they were first in the league in third down conversion. He can absolutely, if he wants, hold their feet to the fire. The problem is, what does that number look like for him? His contract negotiations have been the quietest amongst everything else, because you have, the holdout on one hand, but then you have the quarterback, which is obviously a very polarizing figure and the most important position probably in the game in Dak Prescott. So you have those two being the focal point, and then you have Amari Cooper over here. The high point number from him, I have no idea. We know the Cowboys made him an offer as well that would have put him in the top 5 at his position in the league. I think that's probably fair. I would say he's probably about a $17 million a year receiver. If his number he's looking for is 20, then yeah, we're getting into problematic territory, because I don't think he's on that degree as like the Michael Thomas contract or what Julio is probably about to get. So it gets complicated there for sure. Pertaining to Dak Prescott and his situation, if you take Zeke off this team now,
right,
I think you still have, with Dak and Pollard and them, I think you probably still have at worst 8-win team. I could see a 9 or 10 win team. But if you take Dak and give me Cooper Rush or, God forbid, Mike White, I think at that point you're looking at like a 4-12 season like we saw in 2015, because that's how the stats bared out, right? I think it was Jeff Kavanaugh who called that out. And let me see if I actually still have that note saved. It was the actual stats from the 2015 season regarding the running game, and the combination of Darren McFadden and Randall actually pretty much accounted for exactly. Yeah, here it is. McFadden and Randall in 2015 had between them 315 carries for 1,404 yards and 7 touchdowns. Wow. They also combined for 50 catches at 8.3 yards a catch. Zeke last year was 304 catches, so carries, 11 fewer, at 1,434 yards. So they combined, Randall and McFadden, and again, I'm not saying like, hey, that's what you need to have.
Right.
I'm just laying out the run game information. Randall and McFadden were only 30 yards fewer than Zeke last year on 11 more carries, and 6 touchdowns for Zeke, 7 between them. Zeke also had 77 catches, but at 7.4 a pop. So I think the biggest issue we saw in 2015, just to give some context on that, was the quarterback play. And obviously Dez being out too. Dez was out with his foot injury for most of that year. But you had Romo with the 2 broken collarbones. You had, what was the carousel? We had Brandon Weeden, Matt Castle, and Kellen Moore.
The left-handed wonder. Yeah.
That's what we had. And so that just completely skews the context of what that season was. I think that's a big part of the season. And I understand that Randall and McFadden by no means have the kind of impact on a game that Zeke does. I am not at all trying to suggest like, oh, see, here you go. Just give me 2 guys like them back and we're all good. My point is to say that team, I think the reason it bombed so hard, other than general health, was more based around the quarterback play that we were able to get throughout the year, and just how painfully vanilla we got once Romo went down. Suddenly we were afraid to take any chances, it looked like. And you compare that to now, if you had to go with Cooper Rush instead of Dak, I think a running back is valuable to especially this team, but a quarterback has a lot of value too. And I think people need to remember that when, some people say Dak's not even worth 30. Minimum, I think he's going to get 32 if he gets a deal. I think he gets at minimum a slight nudge over the Carson Wentz deal. I agree he's not deserving, in my opinion, of the $35 million, which would best the Russell Wilson contract to make him the highest paid quarterback. And I certainly agree the $40 million number that was thrown out there. I think that's like the shooting for the world number that they don't even expect to get, kind of like Zeke had his number that his team threw out there for what he was wanting. And it was so leaps and bounds ahead of the Todd Gurley contract that the Cowboys are kind of like, no, let's actually talk though. Like joking out of the way, let's actually have this conversation now. So just something to keep in mind.
Yes, indeed. Just to counter that, and just to be, and I'm speaking objectively, Cowboy Nation, just to counter that wonderful soliloquy that you just gave out to everybody in the nation. I think Ezekiel Elliott still give you +3 games. So if he had played on his 2015 team, they would have went probably 7-9, opposed to 4 and whatever they went. And my thing is with that too as well with Ezekiel Elliott, you got to add this into the fact. If you look back at that 2015 team, how many games did we lost by more than 7 points? You see, and
there was a lot that year.
It was a lot. I thought we was pretty much in every game. I think that we got blown out. I guess against the Patriots and somebody else, but it was a close game against the Seattle Seahawks. I'm sorry, Seahawks fans. And it was a close game against the Green Bay Packers, Smackers, whatever, But I would say that this right here, Cowboy Nation. Ezekiel Elliott, he had 9 touchdowns last year, and one can argue the fact that, of course, 6 touchdown rushing is not a good number. It's not a good number where you can walk around and say, yeah, Zeke. It's a horrible number, Yeah. But the 3 touchdown receiving, I can give him that. And I would look at it from this aspect too. He was handcuffed by the guy named Scott Linehan, you see. But neither here nor there. This team. It's enough of pandering around. We got everything. My only reservations heading into this season would be the kicker, for crying out loud, and also the growth factor with Kellen Moore, because there's still going to be growing pains. He's a rookie offensive coordinator, so I thought that was going to be our only hiccup. I didn't see this coming a mile away. I didn't see this. It just hit me all about surprise, because I was sitting there looking like, what is Ezekiel Elliott talking about? It made my voice go away. I don't have a deep voice no more. I said, what Ezekiel Elliott is doing? He got 2 years left on his contract. What is going on, Zeke? You just got into a fight with somebody in Vegas where you can clearly pull up the tape and you were drunk. And one can argue the fact that you was with your lady, yet it seems like you was arguing with her. So I'm sitting there like, what you doing? I don't mind Ezekiel Elliott reaching out, trying to get his money. But what I wanted Ezekiel Elliott to do is just wait, because the timing is bad. It's just bad and poor timing to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that's part of why Jerry is you're seeing with today, his comments, he's getting frustrated with this whole situation. And I think that part of it is just he knows he stood behind Zeke. Look back to 2017. He tried to take down the commissioner himself
right.
to get satisfaction for his running back who was wronged over the course of a year-long investigation and then unfair arbitration and appeals and all of that. The NFL literally going against its own investigative team to issue and uphold the punishment. Yeah. So, Jerry went after the commissioner himself to have Zeke's back, and now all Jerry is saying he wants is he's like, I wish he was just here so we could talk to him directly, which interestingly, did you see that the Players Association is actually looking into the Cowboys very out there in the open practice of basically cutting out the agent and the middlemen in that case and trying to deal directly with the players? I think that's interesting because it was literally like that same day that Stephen Jones made some comment along those lines in an interview. And then by the end of the day, you hear that the Players Association is like launching an inquiry or something into the whole thing. And it's just like, dude, you said it in the headline itself. This has been known for years. The Cowboys do this. Like, it's not an investigation. And I get why the Players Association would probably take exception to something like that. But if the Cowboys get you here and they can talk with the player directly and kind of cut out the middleman in that case, I think they can get the deal done. And that's what Jerry wants. He wants Zeke here so he can be around his teammates, around the facility, and you kind of build in off of like the familiarity and the kind of camaraderie with the whole thing. Like, yeah, look at the team, see your teammates. Don't you want to be around here? Don't you want to get this sorted out and come back to work now?
Let me speak freely on this.
Go for it.
This stuff been going on for years, even with Pop Warner, even with middle school and high school booster clubs. Even when you try to go to college, all of a sudden, miraculously, this guy shows up with a Hummer. It's been going on for years. Now, my thing is the NFL Players Association, they are so lame. They are so lame because this is why they are. They work when they want to work. My thing is, where were they when Kia Roberts said that, hey, there should be, out of the information and the investigation that I witnessed here or pulled up, I see no fault in Ezekiel Elliott. There's not enough evidence. He should have 0 suspensions. Where were the NFL Players Association then? So they missed me with that. If they really care about Ezekiel Elliott, they'll try to recoup some of those remunerations from the NFL for those 6 games that he was suspended on then. And then on top of that, if you add into the missing money, how many commercials you guys saw of Ezekiel Elliott? I'll wait.
It cost him millions and millions of dollars and all kinds of potential sponsorships and all of that. I mean, look at how many commercials Dak is in. It would be much more. Wow. You'd see a lot more for Zeke were it not for that being appended to him. Now, I understand even if the NFL hadn't brought down punishment, the fact that his name got dragged like that probably would have hurt him in that regard anyway. Right. But yeah, that's one of those things too. When people kind of look at the Jalen Smith situation, he's got his whole business he does, the Clear Eye View, that he knows in his case, taking the team friendly deal works out for him because his brand is forever tied with the Cowboys now. And now they're going to be, selling and marketing his brand as well. I think they posted a video today, literally spotlighting his Clear Eye View glasses brand. So that's how it works. I mean, the Joneses will absolutely take care of you, even outside of just your actual on the field role. But I think that might be in part why Zeke is looking at it. And he's like, hey, I lost out on all these potential sponsorships and things like that. So for me, I need to get mine now because I'm a running back. They say I don't, even if I am a transcendent running back who can buck the trend, by which I mean run well into your 30s, which is pretty much right now a list of Adrian Peterson and Frank Gore in terms of current guys. If you're a running back, by the time you hit 30, it's the death knell pretty much as far as your career, and especially in terms of big money. So if that's what you're up against and you're looking at like, well, a quarterback and a wide receiver, they'll get paid into their 30s. Quarterbacks might get paid into their mid 30s, like at top dollar. I mean, look at guys like that. Tom Brady,
right?
Drew Brees. You got all these guys that are just going later and later into their career.
Zeke's like, I need to get him off the count. Was it Josh McCown?
McCown.
He's still playing. Here's the thing is, though, and I understand Ezekiel Elliott's sentiments, but he could have still showed up. That's all I'm saying. When I was out there in Oxnard, I looked to my right, I looked to my left. There was a lot of people wearing those 2-1 jerseys, you see.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there looking. They love Ezekiel. They don't like Ezekiel Elliott at all. They love Ezekiel Elliott. And Ezekiel Elliott got tons of things. He's very marketable. Man, my goodness, he's very marketable. But you guys can tell me. I can look in the chat box and see right now that everybody knows that when Ezekiel Elliott got hit up with that Commissioner Roger Goodell, I mean, he started growing his hair. And I'm not trying to look at it in an appearance aspect for it, but he started looking like Wolfman out there. I know I got a beard or what have you, you do as well. But, Ezekiel Elliott's beard became all raggedy, and then his hair was just all messed up. His lips was all black and everything. He don't have that image that he had when he was in his rookie year. And you can tell something was going on with him mentally as it relates to worrying about on the field, off the field, off the field, on the field, going to court, going not to court. Oh, you are eligible to play, you're not eligible to play. And then the following year, they still dragging on this, they dragging on that. I mean, that stuff weighs on you. And you got, if you look at the opposing teams, our counterpart, Saquon Barkley, you'll think that he can walk on water,
Right.
It's just night and day between the two.
I think last year is the only season I can think of where there wasn't some immense storyline around Zeke going into the season, because obviously even after we drafted him, I think it was either like right at the start of the season or something like that. It might have still been training camp where we first heard about the allegations against him. Then, of course, it drags out for the whole year of year 2, eventually affects the back end of that season. I think last year it might have just been like, hey, we finally don't have a story surrounding Zeke, right. And now we have a sense of normalcy. And now this year it's the contract negotiation. So he's always in the news. He's always the main talking point. But it's just a crazy thing where when he's on the field, he is one of the best running backs, certainly. I mean, I think if at worst you put him at worst at the third running back in the league, I think he's probably 1 or 2 for sure. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things too where, there are the pins and needles that he has to walk on because of his other off the field issues that he's had, or as you referenced earlier, his issue at the music festival. He gets called into the NFL's offices basically to pretty much at the time. I mean, you were hearing people reporting, oh, it's going to be a 1 or 2 game suspension. Thankfully, that didn't come to pass, but it's still one of those things where it's like, that's the kind of thin ice he's walking on. Whereas you can have the Kansas City Chief guy, Tyreek Hill, you can have that whole debacle with him. Nothing. Not even called in the office. Nothing. No year-long investigation. Maybe a month or so of very quietly in the background, not making much noise about it, investigation into his whole situation. It's just a different focus. And whether Zeke brings some of that on himself or it's just purely the star aspect of it, I don't know. But it's still the reality. The reality is the reality. And I think that also makes it, for me, a little bit harder to pay him big dollars, where it's like, okay, if we have another thing like this, whether it be during the season, after the season, whatever, and suddenly I'm paying you $15+ million a year, and on top of that, you're out 6 games or something for a suspension, like I can't fathom paying that and tying up that kind of cap money into a guy that's not going to be available, even if he's a transcendent talent. And that was why 2 years ago I had the controversial opinion, basically saying, like, I don't know if Zeke can't be signed at a, when I say reasonable, I'm still talking about paying him like pretty much in the range the Cowboys are looking now, like in the top 3 at his position. Or if I go over Gurley, it's by pennies on the dollar. Like, it's less than $1 million over the Gurley deal. Yeah. If I can get that, fine. But if you're going to make me go, especially 15, 20, whatever % over that, I think I might be out. And I got killed for that for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Talking about that. Yeah, 2 years.
Man, and, but the problem is, like I said, there's no one size fit all, because the moment we pay Ezekiel Elliott, let's say, for example, we pay him $50 million, 4 year, $50 million, right? Guaranteed. We pay him that money and these sorts of things. And we say, okay, we're happy. We got Ezekiel Elliott. We're going to put all our chips on the table, and we're going to go ahead and try to win this Super Bowl.
Yep.
The next following week, the LA Chargers can trade, what's that guy named? Melvin Gordon to a team that is saying that there's only one running back away from winning the Super Bowl, and they can give him a 4 year, $60 million. You see what I'm saying? So that's the problem is with the salary cap. Not all teams got the same remunerations or the same money or the same cap space, what have you. Some teams will overspend. And I'm going to say this, and I know I got a lot of hate mail from this before, but that's what the Chicago Bears did. They said, okay, we are one defensive guy away. Let's just go ahead and just put all the chips on the table, give this man $141 million.
I think so, yeah.
And guess what happened? Defensive ends, everybody else say, hey, I want some of that money. Football is not promised to us. I want some of that money, but not everybody got that money. And then the football players, they're looking at the billionaires pulling up in yachts, pulling up in new stadiums and stuff, and they saying, yes, they do. I want that money. But if you go get that money, you don't get the hardware. And I got a team in Boston that can prove it to you.
No, absolutely. And that's the balancing act of the whole thing. You got to figure out where you draw that line and how you build out the roster, because the salary cap is a thing.
It's crazy.
And that's why you have to look at these deals. You have to look at, the Cowboys, with what the Cowboys want to do. When we were talking about the cap figures we were looking at when we were projecting Dak around 30 million. Again, this is slightly outdated because I cite that Dak at roughly 30 million. I think he'll get more. Zeke was being talked about at like 13 and a half, I think, at the time, and Cooper around 17. When we were talking about those 3 figures, the Cowboys would have been built in a way where their top 10 players were going to make 71% of their total cap space.
Wow.
And that is hard to win and sustain long term, because what it means, we have been great at the draft in recent years.
True.
Great. Even Taco, which was considered a huge question mark, looks like he's showing out now. And he is, he obviously made the team again this year. Unless there is some kind of trade or something, which Steven kind of alluded to, not specifically for Taco, but unless something like that comes down before the deadline tomorrow, which I think is 3 p.m. for final cuts, right. Even he will have an opportunity, it looks like, as he showed out really well late in training camp and in the preseason, like he might turn out. But if you can't draft well and continue drafting well, where you can have those guys on rookie contracts playing big I was going to say minutes, but that would come across as 2 NBA talk at that point. Big snaps for you, big roles for your team, then you're going to be hard pressed to sustain that kind of system where 10 guys at the top of your roster make almost all the money. But that's why you have a Will McClay, and you look at someone like a perfect example of it working out just perfectly. Leighton Vander Esch, LVE came in and almost immediately was, if not the best linebacker on the team, like the second best. And him and Jalen now have formed a ridiculously good tandem where, health permitting, you have the best 1-2 punch at linebacker, I think, in the league. And if you have a healthy Sean Lee, you have no question, I think, the best linebacking core in terms of your starting 3. So that's what you're looking at. If you can balance it, if you can sustain it, you can do it. Otherwise, you need to try and win in the next 2 or 3 years, because that feels like a house of cards that inevitably will have to crumble.
Man, I'm going to have to call you a capologist, man. Right, so with that pie, now it's a beautiful pie that Jerry Jones was talking about. He said the pie is now smaller. Did you know the salary cap number, what we was going to have next year available to us? I know it was a large number. It wasn't like small. Yeah,
I don't remember the exact figure off the top of my head, but I want to say it's the 3rd highest in the league.
Right.
I want to say it's like that high up where it's a lot of money. It's north of 26, I want to say.
So I think that we do have enough money to pay these guys. I just think that I'm thinking that this is like showing us that Stephen Jones is steering the ship, you know. And Jerry Jones might have bought the ship, but Stephen Jones is steering this thing.
Yeah, I think Stephen's been kind of silently doing that for a little bit. I mean, we had those discussions even when we were talking about like the release of guys like Des Bryant and stuff like that. I mean, that was total Stephen Jones, not re-signing DeMarco Murray, total Stephen Jones move. But yeah, it's becoming, with every passing year, to your point, more prominent and more clear that Stephen Jones is kind of doing it. Jerry's kind of still the face of it, and he'll do a lot of the negotiating and stuff like that. But end of the day, it's going to come down to what Stephen Jones can figure out in terms of dollar and cents and how it fits in the cap. I mean, they got cap guys as well there, of course, but Steven's steering the whole thing.
And Jerry just spitting off at the mouth. Sometimes we just wish that he could just hush. We love Jerry. Jerry, if you're ever on this page, we love you. We'd like to bring you on to the show and these sorts of things. And so he can say, I'll be trite, Yeah. But my thing is with Jerry, like he was saying, how he mentioned, he said Ezekiel is not the major ingredient for a Super Bowl and things like that. It's just all types of little small, it's the small things that Jerry says that would kind of get us kind of like, oh man, what are they really going to do with this guy? Do you have any surprise cuts out there?
Surprise cuts. Let's see. There was one that I had in mind. I was a little surprised that Phillips got cut, but I think they're trying to sneak him to the practice squad.
Number 44, right? That's my guy, Big Game James guy, man.
Yeah, he had like James and I were doing a show last night, and as we were going off the air, the game wrapped up. I think he had like 11 tackles last night. So he made a late push. I think they're going to try and sneak him through, but that might be tough after the kind of preseason he put together in the kind of camp. So we'll see on that. But that's probably the standout surprise for me thus far.
So he was like one of the surprisers. I think that I'm going to have to say this, man. It could be a situation in a scenario that Noah Brown is not on his team. And
I think they'll put him on PUP.
Well, you think they're going to go that route?
I think so. Yeah. They like him a lot. I know that. I mean, if you talked to Steven 2 weeks ago, that was his thinking, was like, oh yeah, we like him. We're going to keep him. But I think they'll probably try and put him through on the PUP now, and as a way of hanging on to him.
Oh wow. Are you team 3 quarterbacks or 2 quarterbacks?
2. I if you can hang on to White as a practice squad, fine, but I'm not keeping him on this regular roster. I get that he needs time to develop. We can't on one hand be like, it's 4th year of Dak. This is the first year it feels like you can really judge him. You can't say that on one hand and then turn around and be like, Mike White, a 5th rounder, so lower than Dak. It's year 2, the start of year 2. He should already be the backup. Right. I get it, but he's got a lot of arm talent, but it just looks like it looks like the game hasn't completely slowed down for him yet. And, look at Cooper Rush last year. He was not very good in the preseason last year. He bounced back pretty well under Kitna this year. And so I think if they can hang on to White as practice squad, that's what they should do. But for regular season, I just roll 2.
Man, okay, that's not bad at all. How many running backs you rolling out with?
Well, if we're counting Olawale as a running back, halfback, I know he's fullback. You'll have Pollard. I think they're going to hang on to Alfred Morris. I think they're going to value his veteran leadership and everything, especially not knowing when Zeke's coming back exactly.
Right.
I know they like Chun a lot. They did cut Darius Jackson. Man, he's been just hanging at the fringes so long of actually
Right.
breaking through. I just don't. I think he's one of those guys that's like um, he's right on the cusp. It's like if it was baseball, he's not triple A, he's quadruple A. He's like right at the threshold, but really good at that last intermediate step. But I think they probably roll with those three would be my guess, and then Chun might get dropped off. Yeah, probably when Zeke comes back, whenever that is. But I think they'll hang on to Alfred Morris because they value his veteran leadership and everything.
I love everything about Alfred Morris, but he just can't catch out of the backfield,
and he doesn't play special teams.
He doesn't play special teams, so you'll be weaker at that point. And Jordan Chun can do those two things. Now, Cowboys do value the veteran guy, they do, but it's like, man, just give Chun a chance. But I understand. And then Weber, I hope that he can find a spot on his practice squad as well. If they decide not to go. Did they cut him as well, or did he make the first wave?
Let me see.
That first wave is always. I remember that back in high school. You go run to the board and see, yes, my name is not there.
I don't see his name in the first wave mentioned here. The notes I took right before we jumped on here. I did see that they cut veteran safety George Aloka. That's not a surprise.
Wow.
I think he's 29 years old, and they signed him hoping he could push Jeff Heath for the job. When he couldn't do that, I think you're going to then look at a guy like Donovan Wilson or some of these other defensive backs like Alumba and all that. I think that's where you're going to look to invest. It saves you money, and it gives you more of a youth movement that makes more sense anyway. So that makes sense to me in that regard. This was Jamil Shower's last run. He's gone. You can't put him to the practice squad anymore. I guess there's X amount of times you can do that. So this was the final run for. He was a safety at this point, right? So Jamil Showers. It's crazy to think that just 3 years ago he was ahead of Dak.
Right. And I was going to say this before you go into more details. Shout out to Alumba, but if Alumba make this team, he need to cut one of those checks to Jamil Shower because he was the guy that batted that ball down for that interception.
I agree 100%. Let me hit with a pivot on this real quick. What are your thoughts on Rolando McClain being reinstated? Cowboys still own, I'm just throwing it out there because I see people asking in the chat. Cowboys do still own his rights, I believe.
If we can get some trade value from that, that would be cool. A draftless situation where that's on his rights. But this is the thing. Hear me out, Cowboy Nation. Hear me out. Thank you for tuning in to the Law Nation Film Session as we take a deeper look at what his number going to be. It's not 55 anymore, but it's Rolando McClain. My thing is with him, he's a physical guy. Hit. But I don't know if he's still going to have the speed. He's been on the sauce for a couple of years now, and he's been on the couch and things like that. So although he's been reinstated, which is cool, I don't think that he would still have that speed. But I'm telling you, when he hit you, you will feel it. If you think I'm lying, ask Jason Witten.
Oh, yeah, 100%. That was the spleen issue, right? When he ruptured his spleen in the preseason. Yeah. Here's something of note, too, with all of that, though. He hasn't played in 3 years. He was a beast in 14. He was all right in 15. It was gone 16, 17, and now 18. I don't see him on this team. I don't see that. I know you mentioned trade value. I don't know what of that we would get. I don't think the Cowboys plan to do anything with his rights, but it is interesting that I saw the report that they do still have his rights. I know Stephen Jones was on today and someone asked him about that. I didn't hear his comments, so maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe he clarified that they don't. But it is interesting, but I think that ship has kind of sailed. It's been 3 years since he played. So as you said, what kind of shape is he in? And look at our linebacking core already.
We're nice.
We're not hurting, man. You're not going to sign I don't know what his age is. You're not going to sign Rolando McClain at this point to be depth for you and just a roster spot if he's not also playing then special teams at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, unless Rolando is better than Taco off that edge, Yeah,
Yeah.
unless you can move some stuff around, but no. I got two surprise guys that should make this team, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna throw this out there while we are at there. GG on the YouTube page says Dave Wave Weber. No, he made the final cut. Well, he didn't make the final cut, but he made it to the second wave, basically. GG. But what I was going to say is this right here. My surprise guys would be number 56, Joe Jackson. I like his skill set. I like the way he played all through training camp and then also on preseason. And also my other guy would be Daniel Wise. So we need to figure out a way if we can get those two boys on this team. Maybe, just maybe, we'll have some better depth than what we had last year by just having those two guys, man. I really like their skill set.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there's a lot of potential there for sure. Let's see. I see someone clarifying practice squad is only their first 3 years in the league that they have eligibility for that. So good call out from that, Brett. Let's see. Trying to see some of the questions here from the chat. People chiming in on their.
Cleveland Brown said he's good with Jalen, LVE, and Joe Thomas.
Yeah,
man.
Joe Thomas, man, he had himself a game against the Texans, man. He nearly had a pick six on top of his blocked punt recovery for a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Joe, he's so fluid with his hips, you would think that he is safety out there. He covers ground really well. I think that Joe, it will be a guy, when we get into those three, our base formation, he'll be a guy that we can really depend on, and we can run probably more base. But this is a pass-happy league, so we play so much nickel.
Yeah. No, I agree. Let's see here. I see we got Daniel Mezzer in the chat. What's up, Daniel?
Daniel, the man. We can't wait to see you out there week 1, Daniel. Let me know if you're going to be at the game or if you're going to come out to the event at Cowboys Experience at Lava Cantina.
Yes, sir. I'll be out there with you guys again as well. So we're gonna run this thing back for year 2 with us involved. Well, were you involved 2 years ago?
No. This is going into my sophomore year with Cowboys Experience. I was drafted last year, man. It was it was a good year last year. We had a great time. Cowboys Experience, for those who out there who don't know, that's where you can get season ticket passes or ticket pricing passes for the football games at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, as well as meet and greet sessions like meeting with Drew Pearson, the guy that caught the Hail Mary that belongs in the Hall of Fame. You know who Drew Pearson is, Cowboy Nation, the original 88. Sir. Yes, and then you guys get a chance also to meet 3 current players that's on the roster. Sometimes that's handpicked by you all too, that's in the fans in the chat box everywhere, because we reach out to you all and say, hey, who do you guys would like to see? And we'll try to reach out to the Cowboys organization to see if they can come out. But for the likelihood, we will have Michael Gallups of the worlds. We'll have Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, all those boys. We had Joe Looney last year. Had a great time. Joe Looney
was great.
Yes.
Jeff Heath, Chidobe was there. When he was still here, we had Bryce Butler at one point. Yeah, I mean, you don't know who we're gonna get.
Maybe we get Donovan. Maybe we can get Donovan.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Yes, to get Donovan Wilson out there, man, and some other rookie phenoms like Tony Pollard. Maybe we can show him some of that Texas barbecue. They'll be after the game. We can't give it to him before the game, though.
Yeah, no, gotta maybe make a meetup after the game or something like that, because we don't want to give it to him the day before the game.
Yeah, and he said, man, what happened to you, man? We thought you was gonna run like Zeke, not eat like Zeke. Come on, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's always a good time out there. I remember one of the highlights for me last season was going into that. I can't remember, it was like week 4 or 5, the Lions game last year. I had Drew Pearson on the stream. That was really cool. Got a few minutes to talk with Drew Pearson on the Prospect YouTube channel, and that was definitely a highlight for me in the first couple of years doing that channel.
Oh yeah, man! And then on top of that, with us going into this year, I think Drew Pearson signed a major contract. I think it was CBS or somebody. Don't quote me on that, but it's going to be even liver this year. Every year, it's like building blocks and building bricks on top of bricks. And every year we get better, bigger, stronger. And it's all because of you all. Everybody that's in the chat box, man. Sheila Neal, appreciate you. And who else we have? Jesse, man, over here on the Facebook panel. He says, let's go. That's what I'm talking about. You guys are the driving force for this thing. And check out the website again, www.cowboysexperience.com. Hut hut.
Very nice, very nice. Let's see here. Was there another thing you wanted to call out on
Let me
before?
see.
I mean, obviously we'll do annhave show before week one, so we'll have
Right,
plenty of time
right.
to talk on that.
I'm thinking of somebody. I'm
What day
thinking
are
of
we
somebody.
looking at still for the next show, just to give people kind of an idea of when they can expect to see us start previewing that Giants game?
All right, so I do know for sure that me, Big Game James, and producer G, we're going to do a show midday. It's going to be like during the week, midday at 12 o'clock Central Texas time. You almost say Texas time. And we're going to be at 12 o'clock, and we're going to give you guys our thoughts on heading into the season. And then I think that you and I, we can do something like on Friday, right before the game, well, really
Okay.
right before the events and things like that, to get people to be aware, to come on out, enjoy themselves. Because this is the thing, and I want every Cowboy fans to understand this. We got to stop being so critical sometimes and sit back and enjoy. I know it's been since 1995. That's why I say, hey, we live like 95. But what I really want people to do is just sometimes sit back and enjoy the game. Be thankful that we got a quarterback that's staying upright. I'm going to knock on some wood. Be thankful that we got a wide receiver now that can catch balls anywhere. I'm talking about number 19. And then the growth factor of Michael Gallup.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this team is doing everything that's needed to win. So this team, we got a bright future, really bright future.
Yeah, for sure. Today, I learned exactly the origin of your Live Like 95. I just thought you were rhyming to sound cool, but now my eyes are open and I see clearly. But
at least I'm not saying I'm crying since 95, but I'm live since 95.
There you go.
Yes,
that sounds
indeed.
better. But yeah, for sure. So yeah, we'll run this thing throughout the season. We'll jump on here at least once a week, if not twice. And it's going to be a good year, man. I mean, even with all the uncertainty surrounding contract extensions right now, whether we be talking about Zeke or Dak or even Amari, Zeke, he's got a couple years on his deal. Dak and Amari, they're free after this year. So the Cowboys have said they're willing to do prove it deals for these three guys. I mean, really, it's prove it for Dak and Amari. But if you do that, the only thing I would caution, if you're afraid of paying Dak 30 or 35 right now, if he has a year like the second half of last year, like let's say they go, let's say they get through the divisional round for the first time since 96. And yeah, let's say they get to that point. The price goes up. If you're afraid of 30 or 35 now, the price goes up if you make him prove it and he proves it. That's the only thing I'm going to caution is you can't then come back because I remember when the season ended last year and the conversation was, hey, Dak might cost $25 million a year if they do a deal with him. There were people who were like,
upset,
he's 17. Like, you're not getting any quarterback at that price right now, let alone one with any kind of resume. But, okay, so just from the end of last season to within the last month, we went from 25 to as high as 40 in certain reports. That's how much quarterback market inflates. So add one more year and then potentially another solid block of resume and another winning season, potentially a division championship, a NFC East championship, and success in the playoffs. What do you think that number turns into? That's the only thing I'm going to caution is if you're against it now, if he does prove it, you can't then come back next year and be like, I don't know, I'm not convinced. Well, then you got to be willing to just start everything over. And when the rest of the team is so close, I don't think that's a good call.
Yeah, it's better to pay the man now.
Because in 2 years, you won't think about it. Think about 2 years ago, Derek Carr, he got $25 million a year. People lost their minds. Look today. Nobody thinks $25 million. I mean, granted, I know Derek Carr has dropped in stock, but still, no one's looking at 25 as like an egregious number anymore. And that's in 2 years. How much the market has changed. So if you do sign him now, you might holler about it now, but in a year or two, it's not going to be the worst contract out there. That's all I'm trying to say.
Facts, man. People don't like facts, though. They want the comfortable lies. But hey, before we run, I just want to be able to put you on the spot. Prediction time. I want you to give me your bold stats prediction for Dak Prescott and your bold stats prediction for any defensive player. Good or bad. It could be good or bad. It can be bad bold or good bold.
Well, one thing that we know, you have your guarantees in life. death and taxes.
Right.
Another one you can add to that list is Dak Prescott running for at least 6 touchdowns. He's done it every year in his career thus far. So I'm going to say give me 6 to 8 rushing touchdowns for Dak. I think you'll see an increased usage in the red zone for him in terms of using his legs, something you didn't see much last year or the year before. And I don't know his yardage off the top of my head. I'm going to have to take a closer look at that. But he usually throws about 22, 23 touchdowns. I'm going to say he bumps that number up to 26, 27 this year. Nothing eye-popping.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to leap off the page, but I do think you're going to see fewer of those mistakes. Like one of the biggest mistakes he had last year, he was sacked, I think, 56 times.
Wow, yeah.
14 times was on him for holding on to the ball too much. So there's another stat that appends how many times the sack was the quarterback's fault. 14 was on Dak. In that particular category, he's, I still think, top 3. He's not number 1 in the league at self-imposed sacks, essentially. But even if you take out the 14 that are on Dak, you're still talking about a line that, as good as they are in run blocking, pass protection could use a little bit of a bump. True. Because they still gave up 40-something sacks for their quarterback that weren't on their quarterback according to the stats. True. That is something to keep an eye on. I think you'll see fewer of those mistakes, though, from Dak. Better pocket presence, a better willingness to turn the ball loose, get rid of it. And I think you're going to see a bump as well, just him working on his mechanics and improving with like John Kitna. But I don't think it's going to leap out at you in a big, big way. I think you're just going to see what looks like steady growth in a quarterback.
Man, that's good. That's good. And on the defensive side of the ball?
Side of the ball.
Hold on. Are we finally going to get somebody that can eclipse multiple interceptions outside of Xavier Woods and Jeff Heath?
Yeah, that is a very good one. Well, LVE got us 2 last year.
I forgot about that. Shout out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shout out to LVE, man.
Man, he got those in back-to-back weeks. That was at Philly and at Atlanta. But, Yep. But I'm going to say for my defensive standout, I'm going to say it sounds funny to say this because he was still a Pro Bowler last year and he was still dominant. I think you're going to see DeMarcus Lawrence bounce back a little bit in terms of those stat numbers. Now that he's had that surgery, he played 2 years with that injury. Now that he's had the surgery, I think you're going to see his numbers bump back up. I think he had 12 sacks on the year last year. I think you're going to see him back in that 15, 16, 16 and a half range probably.
Wow, man. Boy, you brought a smile to my face, man. That's like going back to DeMarcus Ware days, you know. Ooh,
yeah.
That'd be nice. It would be nice, man. Yeah, that's good information, man. And then on top of that, I predict that Byron Jones at least give us 2 interceptions. That would be good for him, you know. And
yeah, he's got 3 for his career.
3
2?
For his career? 2
or 3. I know he has at least 2. It might be 3. But that would be an improvement for him because as good as he's been in press coverage and as good as he was last year, that is an element that if he wants top dollar as a cornerback, he's going to have to be able to give you the create turnovers sometimes.
Yes. And then also before we go, Ezekiel Elliott, he will be the NFL leading rusher once again. He was signed week 2. And we'll see a fresher Ezekiel Elliott throughout the year because they're going to split the carries between him and Tony Pollard, and we're going to get things going in the right directions. Everybody is going to be mad, but the Cowboys. Yeah, I mean, and Skip, you know, Skip, he always pump up the Cowboys all the time.
Right.
You know, but that's how I see it. You know. Shout out to everybody, man. Thank you all for tuning in to the nation. Really, really, really do appreciate you all. This been another episode with Cowboys Experience. Check out their website, www.cowboysxp or cowboysexperience.com. DDP, let them know where they can find you at, man.
You can find us on YouTube, The Dallas Prospect. You can also go to the website, thedallasprospect.com. You'll have original articles written there regularly by myself, and Big Game James is also a writer for us. Yeah. You can also check out my work on Clutch Points. I recently picked up with them. I write a little bit for the Cowboys Experience as well. And Dallas Sports Fanatic, of course. So wow. I write.
You're a busy guy.
busy, writing all the time for these different websites and everything. But you can check out that stuff there. Also, of course, Facebook, Twitter, all that. Just check us out, The Dallas Prospect.
Yeah.
Your home for Dallas sports and pop culture.
Every legend was once a prospect. So
yes,
you guys
sir.
Put that down into your mental. You guys know where to find me at. That's LAW Nation. Hit us up. And we're going to get this thing going one way or another. That's been our time. I really appreciate you all for yours. And remember, you're listening to nothing but the best. Salute. We're out.
Peace.
All right.
Good show, man.
Yes, indeed, man. It's fantastic, man. It's one of those shows where you have to say to yourself, man,